Good morning. Thank you again for having us here. I think this is a great opportunity to have dialogue. And again, my name is Fernando Lopez, and I just want to also give a shout out to Aida Mancias, who was a very good friend of mine. And I used to go to her house on Saturdays, and I would play the piano while she made pancakes, and we would call it a fair trade. I mean, that's kind of how Aida was. And I don't know if anyone in this room remembers, back in 2005 or 2006, Aida and I helped to host at her home the first Latino caucus for marriage equality, where we made menudo, and everyone kind of just had a dialogue and about what the intersections were back then, and it was a pleasure to do that with her. And she's always in my heart, so I'm glad that we were honoring her here today. It's appropriate. And to what you were saying, I think to know where we're going, it's important to know where we've been. And my family is from Mexico. I'm 1/4 indigenous people, 2 different tribes from central Mexico. My father is from Chapala, Jalisco, where I also lived off and on growing up, and in Guadalajara as well. I spent most of my life in El Centro. My family immigrated to this country, and they all worked in the fields. And I'm actually the firstborn in this country, first generation, and the first person to not have to work in the fields. My family worked in the fields. My grandfather worked in the fields until almost the day he died, when he was 65, of cancer. And my family suffered through the strikes and the boycotts with Cesar Chavez, and I've always been very connected to my heritage. And so growing up in this very Latino Catholic community, I always knew that I was different. Like Dwayne, I think maybe even younger, I was in love with my best friend. I was convinced one day we were going to get married and have a white picket fence and a dog. I could see it. And I knew that I was different, and I didn't know what that meant. And I mean, I could sit here and talk about the psychological, sociological, political, and cultural reasons, but instead I'll make it very personal, and the connection to my family, and hearing my father say words to me, to other people, to hear the words faggot and fairy and queer come out of the mouths of the people who loved me, and to think, maybe am I this thing that everyone hates, that people are afraid to talk about, or not afraid to hate. And as I grew up and I realized, gee, maybe I am this thing. And I came out. It was very traumatic, and here we are in LGBT History Month. We're coming up on the anniversary of the murder of Matthew Shepard, and I'll never forget that day. It was the first time that a lynching of a member of our community really made it into the public eye. It was after Ellen DeGeneres came out. You know, you were starting to see more LGBT individuals in popular culture. And it struck a chord, and it was very public. And I remember my father was switching the channels, trying to find a football game. And he was getting frustrated because on every channel it was this Matthew Shepard faggot. God damn fucking faggot. Every channel. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to my father say this. And he gets so frustrated, he throws down the remote. And he looks at me, he goes, "You know, mijo, the only good faggot is a dead faggot." And I don't know where I found the strength or bravery, but I stood up, looked my father right in the eye, and I said, "You know, Dad, it's not that hard to get a gun in this town. In fact, I think your brother has one. I'll go down the street, I'll get it, I'll bring it, I'll even put it to my head. You can pull the trigger, and there'll be one more good faggot in this world." Then I lost all bravery. And burst into tears, ran into my room, slammed the door. And in that moment, that hate that my father had suddenly turned into fear. Fear for the safety of his son. And that is why it's so important for us to come out, not just as gay people, as queer people, as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and allied people, but to come out in support, in vocal support, of people who are different, of people who may not be the same as you, people you may have been afraid of or hated, but didn't know that you had love for or the fear for their safety. It took a long time. It took many years. I was homeless. I lived out of my car. I put myself through school. I worked. And I eventually got married. And you better believe I brought my husband to every quinceañera, and every wedding, and every funeral, and every family event, and every time it was, don't you bring him around here. He's not welcome. He is not family. I'm like, como que no family? Like, this is my family. This is my husband. Okay, well, you can bring him, but you can't call him your husband. You can't introduce him as your husband. Oh, I'm going to introduce him as my husband. You better believe every year I came back, and I came back. And my grandmother says, I know, you can't marry men. Men are dirty, men sucio. And I'm like, really? Is that how you feel about Grandpa? And I'll never forget the day she finally referred to my husband as tu esposo, and how much that meant to me. And realizing that after all these years, the family had finally come along, and my grandmother passed away 2 years ago, next month. And I remember sitting in the church in Brawley, and the Catholic cathedral, and looking around the room and realizing that not a single person in that room, not one of these brown folks, that supposedly everyone voted yes on Proposition 8, not a single one of them had. And it wasn't because of what I had to do. It was because by that point, my father, my tias, my abuela, they had all been so proud of the work I had done for my community that they had all spent these years talking about me with their friends and their family and their pride in me and the work that I had done. And that had changed their perception. They came out in support of their gay familia, and I ask that you all take the time to do the same. Thank you.